What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another episode of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and joining me, as always, are the usual suspects, Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Robert DeFelice.
Hey.
Hey, everybody. What is going on? We are doing the October 2019 mailbag, answering the questions that you have submitted. Obviously, not every single one of them, but that's because some of them we don't want to answer. Some of them we will answer at a later day about Crown Jewel, and some of them we've answered in the past, and some of them we just, going to hold off for another mailbag. So this is going to work the way that it always do. We got those questions. We're going to give you the answers, and that's pretty simple. So I want to remind everybody that this isn't just about us, it's also about you. So if you want to answer the questions yourself, or you want to respond to our answers for the questions, drop a comment below on YouTube, ring that bell, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already while you're over there. Hit the like button on the video, and obviously if you're on the audio-only platforms like iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and Google Play and Anchor and whatnot, then you can't leave a comment. So by all means, head on over to YouTube, take care of it that way. So we got that stuff out of the way. Let's just dive right into it here, and let's start talking about the question from Howard. He said, if Chad Gable now changed his name to Shorty G, and there's a rapper out there that's named Shorty G, can the rapper sue WWE? It's kind of difficult because I don't know anything about how the legal system works, but I would assume that it's one of two different possible scenarios. Either the Shorty G rapper has the name trademarked, or potentially doesn't, and it's for being a rapper, and there's enough of a distinction that people would be like, well, there's, they're not going to get the two confused, or WWE is totally just in the wrong here. But I'm pretty sure that WWE has Shorty G trademarked at this point.
Yeah, they trademarked it. They trademarked it maybe a month ago.
A little bit before they had started this whole Shorty G thing.
Yeah, a little bit before the King of the Ring, so probably more than a month.
Yeah, so that might be good enough that they can get away with it and not have some kind of legal issues. Or it could be the type of thing where nobody cares, so nobody's going to do anything about it. But I would love to see them get taken to something and have to ditch this Shorty Gable, Shorty G thing, because I think that this is awful.
No, they'll just change it to Lil G.
Ugh.
And it'll just get worse. But I will say, the promo Chad Gable cut was at least somewhat inspiring. If you're gonna do a "hey, I'm short," you might as well try to make it inspirational. That being said, I don't think we get any more of that kind of promo from him, and I think he just moves over to main event or whatever.
Yeah, I think the likelihood is the WWE just trademarked the name to be used in a wrestling domain, because I assume they've probably trademarked names or terms beforehand which have been trademarked in other areas. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure they would just localize it. If AEW for some reason wants to create a character called Shorty G, they can't because WWE already has it.
Well, I'm sure AEW is sitting there going, damn, they took it away from us.
Well, no, they can't wait to get Chad Gable and just, call him by his real name instead.
And let him, wrestle and just be a guy who's good at wrestling.
They'll call him Big G.
Be an Olympic athlete.
He'll be GXL, according to Big Cash. Or maybe they'll just make him a rapper too, and he could be Slam Master Shorty G or something.
Can we stop?
Can WWE stop?
Instead of P. Diddy, he can be G. Biggie.
I hate you.
Well, now that it's Xavier Woods that's injured. Damn, if Big E was injured, they could have put him in the New Day, and he could have been Big G. Or Short G. This is such a terrible name. I don't know why they think that this is a good idea. And all the reports have been a matter of Vince McMahon likes it and stuff, and I could just picture him backstage being like, Shorty G, that's something there. You got something going, and it's like, no, you don't. You're the same person who thought that Skinner and Abe Knuckleball Schwartz and stuff were good ideas.
Well, I don't think he necessarily thinks it's a good idea. It's an idea that makes him laugh, and so he's going to do it.
Until one day he just goes, yeah, I don't want to actually feature this character anymore. And then Shorty G is wrestling on house shows and nothing more, and it takes some repackaging to get him back to Chad Gable. And everybody wonders what happened, and it's like, you know what happened? You gave him a gimmick of being short and named Shorty G. That's what happened. God. Self-explanatory. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to have any kind of legal troubles with this. I would assume that they probably won't. If they trademarked it, that's probably good enough. Then again, I went through this whole thing. I wrote up an article about Halloween Havoc last night, and I looked into the trademark, and some t-shirt company had trademarked Halloween Havoc with the Halloween Havoc logo from WCW, which is really strange. And then 2 or 3 months later, WWE trademarked it again. So I don't know how trademarking works. Ask John Cena. It's a stupid joke. All my jokes are stupid. Let's go on to Emilio's questions. What are some of your favorite WWE theme songs? Man, I could go on for a long time about this, but I'll toss
If
out
you want to
some.
donate to the Patreon, we'll do a Mount Rushmore of themes.
That's true. Yeah, so here's a couple. I'm just gonna spit out a couple. I could just look on my list. The go-to one that I think when I think of like what do I consider like the best overall WWE theme is Bret Hart's. I absolutely love that it starts off with a note, because I think every theme is good enough if it starts with some kind of a signature that makes you go, oh my god, as soon as I heard that one little split second, I know who's coming out. Yet it also builds up, and the theme's just badass, that guitar and everything. Love his theme. D-Generation X, Chris Jericho, Big Show, Ezekiel Jackson's, this here's what you call domination. That song's really fucking catchy.
That's fantastic.
Big fan of Crush's old theme. Four Horsemen. There's 2 different ones of those, and they're both great. One that nobody's going to mention, Tino Sabatelli. Love his theme. Shawn Michaels is great. Brodus Clay's Somebody Call My Mama. That one's fucking hilarious and great. I love John Cena's theme, My Time Is Now. Kurt Angle's is great. TJP's is great, especially because I love the music from Mega Man, especially Mega Man 2's main theme. Kofi Kingston's old theme, the old WrestleMania theme, the one that they use for Linda McMahon. That I miss that. Hulk Hogan's theme is really good. Mark Henry's is really good. I love Jake the Snake's theme. It's so simple, but I could put that on repeat over and over again. Mr. Perfect's is amazing. Randy Orton's is great. Like I said, I could just keep going on and on. What are some other ones that you guys think of?
Undertaker's Ministry theme is one that I personally enjoy quite a lot. I think that's his strongest theme out of all of them because it made him feel actually really sinister. Whereas, obviously, the theme is iconic, but it's pretty much just... It's been pretty... Yeah, that's it, really. It's like Macho Man's theme music is excellent, but it's essentially an existing song which they just used and gave a bit more theatrics to.
For that matter, Ric Flair's theme, also Sprach Zarathustra, the one from, that's it's been in a million things, but most people recognize it from 2001: A Space Odyssey. That song, I don't like any of their versions that they use for Ric Flair, for the most part, but that song in general, if you listen to the real song, I literally cannot listen to it ever without getting goosebumps. It's such an amazing song.
Same goes for Walter's theme.
Oh, the Dvorak, yeah.
And Daniel Bryan's Flight of the Valkyries.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Another great one. Not a fan of Daniel Bryan's version of it, though.
I think they just want to jazz it up a bit.
Yeah.
Edge's theme song's always good. Specifically with Edge, I really enjoyed Rob Zombie's Never Gonna Stop. Benoit's theme, I always enjoyed.
Oh, yeah, that's a good fucking theme. It's a shame that they can't reuse that.
Yeah, that's a great theme song. I like the Rey Mysterio's original theme, especially with the way it kicked off with that noise. And nobody's gonna say it because everybody hates him, but Brock Lesnar's theme song just feels like, oh shit, somebody's getting their ass kicked. But for me, I think best theme song ever, Triple H, Motorhead. It's like
See,
that shit just gets me hyped.
I have Triple H on my list, but I have it for my time rather than his Motorhead versions.
So I used to love My Time, but after really listening to it, the entire song is like this weird, hey, and smart marks are dumb, and the office is dumb, and does anybody know who's sleeping with who? And it's funny now in hindsight, but it's like a weird song for Triple H.
I try not to deconstruct the lyrics too much because a lot of them are very stupid. Have you ever tried to translate Maurice's entrance fee?
I thought it was like something like "Why are you so beautiful" or something.
Well, it's just her saying the word "why" repeatedly,
Yeah.
and then just and then words like "as" and "when" and stuff like that in between. But
my favorite when you just like, wait, why is this a wrestling theme song? Is Kelly Kelly?
Wait,
Just
what?
like
How did her theme go again?
it's something about like all the girls at the club, like how we do. It's just like a song about hanging out at a club. It's like and feeling sexy. It's like, wait, why? What is this? Why is this a wrestling theme song?
Dude,
Oh, if you want to talk
like-
about real bad women's themes, what was that one that they used for multiple different people where it's like, I just need a boy?
Oh my god, it's Insatiable. Like they used it for Layla. I know.
And I
Most
think
recently,
Taryn, I think
Yeah.
had it. That was such a bad theme. I'm insatiable. I just need a boy or whatever. It's like, okay, well then go fuck anybody in the roster then. There's a whole locker room filled with a bunch of guys with dicks.
Well, which is like Michelle McCall's one. It's like, was it just another man in love with me? That sort of
Yeah.
thing. It's just like, what does that got to do with you fighting in the ring? It's like,
And she
No,
wasn't
none
like a
of it has
sensual
anything-
character either.
no, and like, well, Maria's one was it like the legs like that thing? That they
Yeah,
originally
that-
originally they were going to do it to Stacey, and that made sense to Stacey. But it's like Maria is okay. Maria's
Yeah.
it's like not that Maria doesn't have great legs, but it's not exactly the thing that she's most known for at that time.
especially at that point, she was just an airhead.
But in terms of other people's themes, Kane.
Oh yeah,
Kane
another
seems
one I
iconic.
got.
Oh my
I like Slow Chemical.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Vince McMahon, No Chance in Hell,
Yeah, that's a
Fantastic.
great one.
iconic. Especially because that does have a sting at the start of it, but it's just like a really grumbly like start to it. Goldberg.
Yep. Oh my
Yes.
god, it's so good. The WCW version, right?
Well, yeah, I mean WWE's one is a weaker version of it, but the WCW one really works out.
Yeah.
Eddie Guerrero, yeah, it's a lot of fun with the Big Brother Rasa stuff. I like Shinsuke's entrance theme. I liked both his original one, and I still like the one with the lyrics now. Sasha Banks does have a very, I think, has her character as diluted. The theme has gotten less interesting for me. When it was in NXT, it just oozed that kind of charisma and confidence out of it. As long as you don't have Snoop Dogg doing the lyrics and stuff.
Becky Lynch is good too.
I wanted to put Becky on it, but it's just a case of there's nothing to it. It's just the same couple of notes repeated constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not
was
big
a
fan of
huge
that one.
problem with the CFO $sign people. Like they were like, it's the same thing repeated. Like Glorious. Glorious is a great theme song, but it's just the one line over and over and over and over.
Booker T's is great, both in WCW and WWE, because he pretty much carried it over. Evolution as well.
King of Kings, anything by Motorhead.
As long as they don't perform it live, obviously.
Oh yeah.
It's all about the game and how you play it. It's all about the game and if you can play it. It's all about the game and the game. It's fucking awful.
Rest in peace. Then Ted DiBiase as well.
Oh, good. God,
They have a
that's
lot of
such a good song.
They have a lot of good ones that are surrounding like money. So there's him and there's Shane McMahon and there's the one they used for Donald Trump for a while.
That's now the Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank theme.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Money in the Bank.
And Ted DiBiase Jr. He's had some good themes too.
Nobody said these two, so I'll end it on this. Owen Hart's, like his
The
the
Blackheart
rocket
one?
stuff. Not the Blackheart one, the one that he used before the Nation.
The
Yeah. And the Rock's Hollywood theme, which is just so good.
I'm looking at my my music collection right now. I've got a bunch that we didn't even say that I'm pretty sure that nobody would even go like, oh, that's one of my go-tos, but I still think that they're great. I have like Maurice's theme and some different ones that we mentioned earlier, but like I'm a fan of Biscuits and Gravy, the Jesse and Festus theme.
Biscuits and gravy.
Biscuits
Oh, I
and
thought you meant
gravy.
just I thought you just meant the food for a second.
Actually, I don't think I've eaten biscuits and gravy like at a. I mean, I've never really gone like down south.
Well, they make you a man,
so
Tony.
they're all that I am. David Otunga's theme, All About the Power.
Oh my god, yeah.
Although it's completely ruined from the outro. So now I'm just there, and when you got that family, and it's like, oh, god damn it. John Morrison's theme, Ain't No Make Believe. Rich Swan's theme, Owen Hart's Black Heart one, the Caution Tape Owen Hart. Heath Slater's Black or White's a good one. Degeneration X. Razor Ramon's theme, very good. Street Profits, big fan of that. Drew McIntyre's old theme, the Broken Dreams. There's Kane. Both versions of Ty Dillinger's theme are really good. Dusty Rhodes is fucking catchy. I'm just a common man.
Demolition.
Yeah, that one's funny as hell. I never know the lyrics for sure, but I always just sing in my head, here comes the axe, and here comes the smash, and here comes the crush, and here comes the, like, it just, like, continue on, like, listing out a whole Royal Rumble's worth of people, and here comes Doink, and here comes, like...
I was just thinking about what I really like Tajiri's entrance fee.
Yes.
I know it's it's stereotypical as hell, but I think they managed to stay far enough away from it to make it a bit more just like peppy and interesting.
End of Days from the Core.
Yeah.
Good thing about it.
Apollo Crews, Honky Tonk Man. There's a good one.
Yeah.
Diesel. I like the whole like. I like Chad Gable's American Alpha theme. Jack Swagger's Get on Your Knees. That was a catchy one. And We the People, the whole Real American thing. That was catchy. Yeah, that's really good. I got some mashups too. Like, if you look on the internet, you can find a lot of shitty mashups, but I got one that's like Vladimir Kozlov's mixed with Undertaker's, and that's really good. And John Cena's mixed with Caval. Cassius Ohno's is good. Dolph Ziggler, The Miz. MVPs, that's another good one. Christian, Just Close Your Eyes. You mix that up with the one from TNA, that's a really good one too. There's so many good themes. And unfortunately, there's so many bad ones too. Yeah, I could just go on and on and on. An odd one that
also really good.
An odd one that people might not know because they never really play it. Mario Ronaldo has a good theme. If you look up End of the Line, that one, as the kids would say, slaps. And the last one I'm going to end off on, actually I'm going to say two more, Ken Shamrock's and EC3's. But the last one I'm going to end off on is Voodoo Child.
Yep. So good.
What about the AEW themes? Do you guys have any that are standing out to you? They don't have like an in-house person, it seems. And it's like a lot of these themes have been created for like Ring of Honor and MLW and elsewhere and everything. But now that I've listened to more of these, I ended up recently downloading Cody's theme, Jericho's theme, Kenny Omega's, Paige's, and MJF's.
Cody's is great. Cody has a great entity. A Boy and His Dinosaurs theme is very good. Because it feels like very low rent Jurassic Park. But it's still pretty good.
I like Jericho's, but Jericho's is, it's just Bozzy.
Yeah, it's Judas. And yeah, that's pretty, one of their better songs, so it's good to hear that one. In terms of, there's not many AEW that really stand out for me. In terms of New Japan, because that's more my wheelhouse. I mean, they have some absolutely cracking themes. Juice Robinson's is great. Tanahashi is obviously great. Both his current one and his old one. Okada, Ishii, because that one really builds up really quickly, and it goes into some sort of like weird Hawaiian motive. Like if you listen to it long enough. And obviously, Kaze ni Nare is the
greatest song of all time.
Yeah, it's the greatest theme song potentially there ever has been.
I have one from New Japan. I have Naito's.
No,
That
this
is
is great.
good.
It's when I think when I last went to see New Japan live, because it goes so quickly and the speakers are so loud and nearby you that it just like disorientates you if you're too close to it. It's just but especially because the lighting as well that he does for those things is all over the place. But it's a good one. I think it's Stardust Genius. I think that's called or something like that.
Yeah, Stardust is how I have it labeled. That's one sketchy. A lot of good wrestling themes. I hope that we keep getting more of them.
Who's doing them now?
I think they just have like an in-house group of people that are classified as like the WWE music group.
That's kind of lame, but okay.
Yeah. Let's go to another question here from Amelia. What do you guys think of the possibility of having Evolution 2 near January and putting the all-women's Royal Rumble on it? Not a fan, to be honest. I don't like taking the Royal Rumble off the Royal Rumble.
Unless it's the greatest Royal Rumble.
I hated that.
I know. I just like pulling your chain.
Yeah.
I
I actually don't even like the idea of Evolution 2. I said before, I think that that's a one-time thing. And if you do any more of it, it's not special anymore.
Well, I'm fine with the Evolution 2 concept. I just don't think you need to put the Royal Rumble on it because by doing that, you're kind of designating it as the lesser Rumble. And I'd kind of hope that, maybe not now, but definitely towards the future, that they're both treated on equal footing.
Yeah. And I think Evolution 2 should be next Friday, but clearly that's not happening.
No, they're just going to have to do a round the world trip all the way back for SmackDown the very next day.
Which is so stupid. Just make that SmackDown Evolution.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that as well. I thought that they should have just done that on the Friday thing and made it like a special event on SmackDown. We're gonna have all women's matches, and stay tuned. And we're gonna have this be a big deal. We're gonna put this title on the line. We're gonna put this title on the line. All 3 titles for the women's division are gonna be on the line, and we're even gonna put some people from NXT in there. Like, they could have very easily done that. It's a 2-hour show. You mean you can't get away with a 2-hour show by having 3 title matches and like a battle royal or something like that? Like, come on, you can do that.
Also, didn't the Saudi show already happen? Didn't you watch Raw on Monday?
Yeah, that's where I was gonna go with it. There's a lot of bad feedback that Raw had 0 women on it. Like, not even a segment, except for Lana?
Yeah, Lana and Zelina Vega in the Andrade match. That was the only involvement for the whole women's division.
Despite the fact they had a Natalya versus Sarah Logan main event match.
Well, yeah, you got to keep Sarah Logan strong on main event, okay? Like, that is her brand.
I'm not saying like I'm not one of those people that tries to advocate. Well, you just have to put a women's match on the card for the sake of having a women's match on the card, but like
when you look at what happened on Raw, it's
and the whole framing of Raw was like giving, even though it wasn't a great show, it was pretty dull by most people's standards. It's still, the theme of it seemed to be giving new people opportunities to shine. Like, so why couldn't you do that with Sarah Logan, who does have a lot of potential and hasn't really had an opportunity to showcase any of it?
That was an awful episode. I hated that episode of Raw. Like, the first episode after the draft, let's have Jason Reynolds on it. It's like, fuck.
See, I wasn't that against what Raw did. I just feel like with the way it was structured, and especially the fact that the only women involvement was a little on the catty side, yeah, it could have fit into an episode from maybe 10 years ago. You know, it could have fit into that frame.
I hope that they learn their lessons, but then again, how many times have we said that?
Becky was just at a panel. They'll probably overemphasize it next week and go too far in the other direction.
Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe Becky could beat Jason Reynolds next week.
Don't you know about Jason Reynolds?
If you guys read, what are some of your favorite books? We all read. I don't read books, though. I'm not a fan of reading books. I think that novels in particular are like that whole writing style where it's like, blah, 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 she said, such and such, he exclaimed. I hate it. I'd much rather read like a script where it's just like name and then this is what they said and whatever. And obviously scripts are harder to come by and everything. And fuck it, I'd rather watch the movie. I'd rather watch the TV show. Then I get like the visuals that go along with it, and I get the music and everything. So yeah, not a fan of reading. What about you guys? Any favorite books?
I'm assuming this is a question more for Callum. I don't read too many books, although I did just get that new Shawn Michaels book for my birthday, so I have to get on reading that.
Well, no, it's kind of free for free. I don't read very often.
Oh well, then.
Just because I'm British doesn't mean that I'm highly educated.
No,
And read.
you seem like the most educated of all of us. That's why.
Well, I probably am, but it's like it doesn't mean that I don't enjoy reading novels. It's too much of a static activity for me. I have read in terms of like my favourites, because it's not like I haven't read anything, but the Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell, because when I do read, it tends to be historical fiction because that's it's at least framed a little bit in something that I have a bit of interest in.
You beat me to me saying I got a feeling that like what Rob would read would be completely different from what Callum would read, because Callum would probably read some kind of like historical books.
Oh yeah, and Rob would read SpongeBob magazines. But yeah, so I read that like a couple of times. It's basically based around the Arthur mythology, so it's part mythological, part historical. So I've read a few bits and pieces by him, but I don't get into that stuff enough. I have, in terms of books I've read multiple times, it's probably the one that I've read the most is The Death of WCW.
Really, I want to read that book, and the Nitro book I really want to read.
I've read it twice, like from cover to cover, and I think I've listened to it about 3 times as an audiobook, just because it's wild. Just because you almost can't believe it after the first time you've read it, what WCW actually got up to. So you have to almost do it again straight away again because it's just so crazy.
God, I can't even remember the last book that I read.
In
I'm trying to
terms
think
of
back to like college, and I'm pretty sure that like over 10 years ago was probably The Misanthrope. But yeah, I don't think I've read a single book since college.
Gatsby's a good book, and it's probably the last book I was forced to read. So
I hear it's great, but
yeah, it's a good book.
The shitty Gatsby. Let's see here. What is a popular fandom that you never got into? Whew, I could name a bunch. I'm not into like elves and magic and Vikings and dwarves and all that kind of stuff. So even though I liked the first Lord of the Rings and I watched the other 5 movies because of how much I thought that I was surprised about Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings is not something that I'm into. I fucking hate a lot of it. Like, I hate that it's like Sauron and Saruman and Biffle and Boffle and Miffle and all that. I'm like, this is stupid as hell. But that also means I'm not into Zelda, and I'm not into Game of Thrones, and I'm not into like Spartacus or like any of those kind of things. Like, none of the swords and sandals and magic type stuff. Even like Harry Potter, like I read 3 of the books and I watched all the movies and everything, but I can't get into magic and I can't get into elves and all that stuff. I don't like The Walking Dead. I'm not into the zombie genre. Horror in general, and I mean, this drives Caroline crazy, but like, I don't like horror. And there's a whole culture that people are like real into, like, man, horror is the best and all that. And I'm like, no, a good movie's a good movie, and there's not really many good horror movies. I'm not really all that much into gaming, and partially that's just because I don't have the time, but a lot of people are really into gaming. They'll play a lot of like fighting games or stuff, and I'm like, I haven't owned a console since PS2. Not into sports, not into anime in the slightest bit. I've had so many times that different friends of mine have been like, you should check out this one. This one's really good. You would like it. And I'm like, this is stupid. Especially if it's the type of crap where it's like, no, this one's a demon. Or this one's a guy that he's possessed by a demon and he can like control sand. It's like, oh, I get it. I also don't drink. And that seems like a fandom nowadays with people being into craft beer and stuff and brewing their own alcohol and all that. I don't drink. So that's like a whole big no-no.
Well, you touched on a lot of them there, but I will say Harry Potter, I've tried, can't do it. As well as Game of Thrones, I did not get the appeal and just like the hysteria of it. And sports in general, like I don't understand why people are like, "Yeah, we won," when
It's like, you didn't do shit.
it's like, yeah, I don't get that at all. But
We are the champions. Yeah, it's a great thing that you hit that fucking home run later, didn't you?
but that's about it for me. What about you, Cal?
Make it free for free in terms of not watching Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
There's no realistic reason why I wouldn't enjoy the series. It was pretty far ahead before I'd even heard of it, and so I never went back and watched it. Even though everyone else in my family has watched every single episode, I just never got into it. I've never gotten into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I've watched about 3 of the movies. And I've said to myself that I will try to go through and do it, but every time that I have a break or a period of time to do it, I just find other things to do. I'm just not particularly interested in picking up any of that stuff. I've probably actually watched more movies from the DC universe, which is crap. And I haven't actually gone back and watched any of the Marvel stuff. I don't, like Tony, I don't drink either, so I can't get involved in any fandoms associated with that. Anime as well in general. Like my friends have tried to introduce me to a load of the Studio Ghibli films, and they're fine. I don't dislike them inherently, but it hasn't encouraged me to go out and try and find other anime stuff to go watch. Doctor Who, which is obviously
fuck that.
the big
Yeah.
deal, a bigger deal in the UK side of things, but it's just there's really I watched like a few episodes of it. It's just so hokey. Which is amazing to say as a wrestling fan, but even that is like ridiculously hokey. Or things like Sherlock or anything along those lines that kind of have been like big deal and resonated a lot with, especially the British public, but also spread overseas as well. Yeah, just never appealed to me because I'm not a huge TV watcher in general. I'm like a YouTube series or like I'll hit something up on Netflix or Amazon or whatever and do that side of things, but I won't actually like sit down in front of a television screen and watch stuff.
I'm glad you brought up Doctor Who because I know so many people that are like, this is the best thing, and it's like, I don't like anything that's like campy, or in particular campy for the sake of campy. Some things are like, yeah, I mean, the superhero genre is a little campy just by its nature. I mean, look at Ant-Man, like, why is there Ant-Man? But, like, if that's the point, is to be like, isn't it so weird that they're quirky? I can't get into it. And
again, we're fully aware that we're wrestling fans.
Yeah.
You'd hate the Carry On series then.
And what's that?
Oh, it was just a series of British films that are so henpecked in the 60s and 70s that basically I would never want any, like, if I was to have a daughter or any woman that I know of nowadays, I would never encourage them to watch that because their head would explode. That's how unbelievably sexist and behind the times all those movies are. But they're all like really like quirky, campy, over the top, like sexual innuendo every other word type movies.
Some of them are on YouTube, Tony.
I'm looking at a list of popular fandoms right now, and I completely skipped over the Cartoon Network. Like Steven Universe and Rick and Morty and all that stuff. I'm not into any of that. Adventure Time, it's another one.
Everybody says Steven Universe is a great show, and I'm sure it is. But again, can't do it.
Yeah.
Rick and Morty I do like, but it's almost like wrestling in the sense that the fandom is almost obnoxious enough to make you stop. Like, that's a really bad fandom.
Oh God, here's one that I'm hoping at the very least none of us are into. My Little Pony.
No. No, of course not.
I don't get it. What the brony people? I really don't get it.
I've tried the a one that's obviously now has seemed to have quite a re-emergence in the last couple of years, Dungeons and Dragons. I've really tried to get involved in it. I don't think I can't watch people play that game. I can try, when I'm playing myself, I can kind of get involved into it a little bit, like the few times I have played, but I can't, the fandom that's associated with watching people like Critical Role and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the one I was going to bring up.
I can't do that. It doesn't immerse me in it enough.
So my last girlfriend was super big into D&D, so I kind of found that whole world, and it's very surprising how much people will lose time watching other people play Dungeons and Dragons. But in that same sense, like, I love gaming YouTubers like Kim Justice, Top Hat Gaming Man, channels like that, but I cannot watch people play video games. I do not know how that's appealing.
I can watch somebody play a game if they're doing like a walkthrough or something like that, especially since I don't have my own like systems to play the games, especially if it's something like the Arkham games where it's got like a story to it. But I would not want to watch somebody on Twitch play like a fighting game for 10 hours. That's crazy to me.
I think I enjoy watching people play, not necessarily fighting games, but just any games for an extended period of time. I think it's the idea that they're doing stuff they feel like they're working towards a goal almost, whereas if I was just to play the game, it would just be a pretty solitary experience. Because I tend to play a lot more just like single player RPG type games. I'm not really into multiplayer stuff, but when I want to I'd rather watch people play multiplayer games than play it myself.
I've seen Rocket League, like the championship stuff from Rocket League. It's amazing that these kids playing Rocket Car Soccer sell out like massive stadiums. I don't get how gaming has gotten that big.
Well, it's like any sporting event, really. It's like just watching two people or two teams of people competing over something, and that's always going to attract a crowd.
You know what I do like though? I like speedruns.
They're fun. Like
the game's done quick and everything.
Yeah.
I can put on a speed run of like Donkey Kong Country or something like that and watch somebody do that because you see their little tricks and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah. But that's a culture in itself of like finding all these tricks and like the tricks for Super Mario Brothers. That stuff is crazy. But
even that though, like, I mean, when it comes to fandom, I can't watch a speed run of a game that I'm not interested in. If it's like, I'm going to speed run the weird version of Castlevania from not into it. So, to each their own. Fandoms are good for just people kind of coming together and everything like that. And if you're like me, who can't get into like the dragons and swords and type stuff, and you wouldn't possibly get into Dungeons and Dragons, then that's fine. If you love it, then check out Dace. Yeah, he does the Dungeons and Dragons thing every Thursday or something like that. I don't know. Let's go on to Marco.
I thought that would be a perfect link into Fanboy and Anonymous, but go right ahead if you want to.
Hey, you know what? Why not? I forgot about plugs. Yeah, we have lots of different types of fandoms covered on Fanboys Anonymous when I get a chance to cover a lot of different types of things. But typically I do the movie type of stuff over there, and there's eventually some TV show stuff, some video game stuff, and some very rarely some music stuff. Music is another thing, fandom I can't get into. I've said before a million times, I don't like a single band. I've never been to a concert, never wanted to, never liked anybody enough to want to go see them. Except for maybe Weird Al. Maybe I'd go see him. But that stuff you'll find over at Fanboys Anonymous. So go check out fanboysanonymous.com. Support the channel by liking all the different things there, following the account, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and hitting up the Patreon. Because if you want to donate something to the Pick Your Poison tier, yeah, that's a color. Or you just want to toss a buck my way to help keep the lights on over at Fanboys Anonymous, that stuff's greatly appreciated. What was the last thing we did? We did Batman Mask of the Phantasm. We did the fan tracks for that for Guest 5. By the way, Guest 5, drop your suggestions about what you want for the Smark Out Moment side of the things on the Patreon. Fuck it, I'll talk about the Patreon while we're doing this. The Patreon for both Smark Out Moment and Fanboys Anonymous. They work the same. If you got $1 you want to toss our way, or $5 or something like that, that's kind of like an ad block forgiveness type of thing. Head up to Patreon. At a certain point, if you do the Pick Your Poison tier, you can pick some kind of a special feature for us to do. It's like Fan Tracks podcast, or some kind of like top rope list on the Smark Out Moment side, different kind of things. We'll talk it out. We'll hash it out. Marco actually is somebody who suggested something like that. So we are going to be doing pretty soon the Mount Rushmore of comedy acts for the pro wrestling side of things. So that's something to take note of. If you want us to do something and we just don't get around to doing Superstar Scores Big Show or something like that, then that's how you can request it, and we can make sure that we get around to doing it as soon as possible. So let's move on to Marco's questions. Whose finisher looks weak and needs a change? He would change Seth Rollins' stomp to a springboard front flip stomp. I actually lose track of everybody's finishers nowadays. NXT UK, NXT 205 Live, even the main roster. It's too hard for me to keep track of finishers because a lot of people, they don't use a finisher because they don't win any matches, or they just aren't featured enough for me to like pay attention to them. Like, I can't tell you what any of the finishers for NXT UK are for the most part. So I don't know if there's people that need a change for that, but I got a feeling that if I actually were to like look at every single one of them, I would think most people need a new finisher, because I can't think of any really good ones right now.
Well, what even is a finisher anymore when it's like, and I'm not being funny when I say this, half the roster utilizes a super kick as a finisher, but it's also like a setup move in 90% of matches.
I think I've always advocated the idea that people should have multiple finishers, or multiple ways to end a match, or people should win matches against jobbers using their quote unquote signature moves, or just like moves that they, for a more established guy, that would just be like a near fall as opposed to a finisher, just because it helps protect them more. Because part of the reason why a lot of finishers look weak nowadays is because people always kick out of the first one. You usually have to do 2 or 3 to actually win a match of any importance. I think we can all be agreed that the overdrive is the worst finisher that still currently permeates. Like, currently nobody's doing it on WWE. It's that MVP playmaker move.
Oh yeah, that one was terrible.
The one
That's
where
why I
you
picked it for my character for Payton's 2K thing.
Yeah, the one where you drive your own knee into a mat and provide a cushion for somebody on the way down. But in terms of people at the moment in WWE, I'd say Bobby Lashley's spear, because I don't think the role makes it look weaker to me. If he was actually just hitting them with a real spear, then it would be fine because he's huge and so he can pull that stuff off. But the fact that he rolls into it just makes it look like he's like taking all the momentum out of it. The Iconics, when they ever do win matches and wrestle together, they do this elevated running knee thing. And it never comes off well. The women's right.
Oh yeah, that's stupid.
And the Bailey to belly has always been a pretty poor. It's a good move for the name Bailey because it just fits in, it flows well, but the actual move itself isn't impressive and doesn't look like it can beat anybody.
Yeah, that's actually a really good one because she's high up enough on that card. She should have a better finisher than that. That should just be some kind of a setup to something else.
Well, that's why she tends to win more matches with the elbow drop now. So at least that's something.
Well, the belly to belly is a little stupid because it's just a belly to belly suplex. It's one of those things that I just don't understand. Like, if this doesn't happen so much anymore, but this used to be a thing back when I was a kid. Like, Undertaker, who's a significantly bigger man than Hulk Hogan, does a leg drop and gets a 2 count, maybe. Hulk Hogan does a leg drop, and that's it. Things like that are very strange to me, and I think a lot of the roster has that problem. Like, I can't point out any name in particular, but there's a lot of moves. Like, Velveteen Dream just does a flying elbow drop, and it doesn't seem like that should put people away in 2019.
And then Kairi Sane does it, and it's a finisher, and yeah, it's all strange. At least when they can kind of like put their own twist on something, then I like it. But I don't know. You got so many people on this roster, and there's only a certain amount of finishers that look cool.
Over on the AEW side, like Ambrose it's just a DDT. I love Ambrose to death. It's just a DDT.
I can't think of anybody on the AEW roster that I know the finishers of, other than Cody. And
how do you feel about the Judas effect, the back elbow Jericho
that's
does?
stupid. God, I hate that.
I don't mind it because he's got 4 ways to beat you. It kind of goes back to what Callum was saying about having multiple ways to beat an opponent, and he's got 4. He's got the Code Breaker, the Lion Tamer, the Lion Salt, and the Judas effect.
I just kind of think it was something as easy as that. Just start off the match by elbowing the guy. Just do it, you know?
Well, that's where you get into things like Big Show's knockout punch and stuff like that.
Yeah,
or even
that's so stupid too.
Realistic Roman Reigns should be able to spear someone straight away. There's a lot of stuff that you need to kind of come to terms with in the arc of what wrestling's supposed to be presented as. Most finishing moves you should just go for straight away, but tell a story before that.
That's why, as bad as the rest of the match was, Triple H and Randy Orton at WrestleMania 25, one of my favorite things about that match were the first 2 moves were the RKO and the pedigree, because realistically, you should start the match trying to end the match.
I tend to think, for the most part, the powerbomb's one of the best finishers, because not only does it make sense that this big dude would pick you up and slam you down and it would hurt like a son of a bitch, but also he wears you down to the point where you can't do anything but let the guy pick you up and toss you, you know? Like, the stunner is kind of like, you can get caught out of nowhere, and that's cool. And the super kick could just be like, you know, you jump off the rope and he kicks your chin, and there you go, you're screwed. And that's all great, and I love those finishers, and they are very much in the contention for the top finisher of all time, but I think that the powerbomb really makes a lot of sense. And when you build a whole match, and it's like you're building up to something like, I don't know, like whose finisher like really sucks we haven't talked about. And I think of the people that are on the roster, like the Claymore, for instance. I'm not a fan of the Claymore at all. How come he can't just hit that at any point? And if that's going to be like, oh, you wore the opponent down so I could really quickly run and kick you. He's a huge dude. Why is he running and kicking? Like, I hate that so much. That's one, yeah, I'd change that. Drew McIntyre needs like a burning hammer or something like that. That'd be so much better. Let's see. Would you rather eat food that tasted good but smelled like the worst shit, or eat food that tasted plain and bad but smelled really good? I have a poor enough sense of smell that you give me the bad smelling food and that tastes good, I'm probably not going to tell that it smelled bad to begin with.
Yeah, I'm going to go with bad smell but tastes good, because if it smells great and it's just average, then you feel let down.
I would go with the argument that about, I can't remember the exact percentage, but about like 90% of taste is in the smell. That's actually like what you're getting in terms of how you taste things is through the smell. So I'd rather have something that smelled really good and tasted plain than, because if you're getting the smell, that's the majority of it. That's the majority of the stuff that you should be aiming for.
You have any foods that you can think of that smell really bad but taste good? I know that they exist. I know people have talked about them before. I'm blanking on some of the names.
I mean, I'm sure there's...
Cabbage smells like a fart, but it doesn't taste bad, you know? Like...
The things where people eat, like, dragon fruit and stuff like that, which doesn't have the most, like, great aroma associated with them. Or is it that thing, was that, like, fish that's in a can that people eat for... Well, no, that people...
Sardines?
Eat for... No, it's a Swedish dish called, I think it's surströmming, where it's a fish that's been put in salt water, and I think it's been aged for, like, years. And so it smells absolutely atrocious, but people eat it as a delicacy.
Like, yeah, surströmming. I'm looking it up now.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, and there's things like those. Was it like 1,000-year eggs and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't.
That people use for those. James Corden bathing videos and stuff like that. like spill your guts or feel your guts, that sort of stuff.
See, I'm not big on stuff like that. Like
No, most people
hard-boiled
aren't.
eggs, to me, people love them. Smell so bad, I cannot get it. I cannot even attempt to eat because hard-boiled eggs just smell so bad.
How do you take your eggs?
Scrambled.
What about you, Callum?
I don't eat eggs.
Did you know that, or was that like a setup?
No.
It's just a new one to add to the list.
Someday we're going to be in the same area together, and I'm going to give you a buffet, and it's going to be the worst nightmare for you. It's going to be chocolate and pizza and eggs and
and we're going to get hammered. It's going to be great.
Yeah, there you go. And watch Game of Thrones. How would you book a Brock Lesnar face turn, and against who? I think that it could be a lot of fun to see Lesnar just start fighting a heel, and you don't need to do anything more than that. Just let the fans cheer him. And if you want to make sure that he gets cheered over somebody, the person to put him up against is King Corbin.
That is a great person to put him up against now, but they did this with Brock in 2016. They literally had people on Brock's side when Brock was going to do the thing with the Wyatt family, and they just completely dropped it in favor of the Ambrose thing. But they were close to it. And we've seen Brock as a babyface before. It works because people like Brock Lesnar. They just want him to be around.
Yeah, Brock is someone who you can just turn babyface or heel no matter what, really, and he's going to get pretty much the same reaction, which is boos from people that want him to be, that think that he's some sort of plight on the business, and cheers from the people that see him for the killing machine that he actually is. So you could just put him in a match against, I don't know, say his next feud is Dolph Ziggler is calling him out like Ziggler was calling out Goldberg. Just have Brock Lesnar come in, kill him in 3 minutes, and then he's a babyface all of a sudden.
Yeah, people would really like that.
And then they would promptly have Paul Heyman go, he doesn't like you. He's not a babyface. Fuck you. And then, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the King Corbin thing is a great example.
Yeah, you put Brock Lesnar against Corbin, Lesnar's getting cheered. Because Corbin's arguably the most hated person on the roster right now. And I think that would work. Like
how Lesnar was cheered half the time over Roman.
Yeah. Unintentionally, but it was a thing. Let's move to Michael P's questions. Which wrestler do you have a fondness for or enjoy watching perform that most fans can't stand or are sick of? Michael says his is Big Show. He's always liked him because he's such a spectacle and seems like a genuinely great guy. I just mentioned him. I like Baron Corbin. Most people seem to hate him. I think that he knows what he's doing. I think that he's not a bad wrestler. He's not obviously like the best on the roster or something like that, but I think that he's better than a lot of other people, and a lot of people would give him credit for. And I seem to be in the extreme minority on that. Another thing that I thought of was I thought that Alex Riley had a huge upside to him. A lot of people thought that he was just kind of like a know-nothing type of guy. I thought that Alex Riley could have been something.
For mine, I'll just go out there and say it. I think Mojo Rawley is very talented. And I think if you actually gave him a decent gimmick and gave him some build and didn't just drop him immediately, he would be a solid mid-card, maybe even upper mid-card guy. I think his promo skills are excellent. His in-ring stuff is basic, but it gets the job done. You can have just a guy who just goes out there and outpowers people. And I think someone who most people are probably sick of right now, I'm not going to say the entirety of the Forgotten Sons, because as an entity, I am sick of the Forgotten Sons. But Jackson Riker is the one who stands out of those ones. And if he was pushed as a singles guy, I think he would make a lot more of an impression.
Yeah, I like Riker.
There's several that I enjoy that people are probably sick of. I'm a huge supporter of Dolph Ziggler. I think I get the hate. I just think he got dealt a bad hand and missed the boat. I will always find Randy Orton entertaining. And even though he doesn't appear on TV as much as he did even a few years ago, Triple H will never be a bad time for me. Like, anytime Triple H is in the ring, I'm okay.
What question are we on? What is your favorite face and heel turn of all time and why? Mine are face for Daniel Bryan turns on the Wyatt family on Raw after the tag team cage match against the Usos. Crowd reaction was just surreal. Heel Stephanie McMahon at Armageddon 99. I've always been a Triple H guy, so to see her join him with a twist in the story was something I did not see coming. Not to mention, I think she was my first crush. That was Michael's answers, obviously not mine. I wasn't just reading off my
I was like, wait, did you write this out?
No. I think that I don't know. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna come back to me on this. I don't know. You guys answer.
So clearly the answer for both is Big Show, right? Just
by the law of averages, Big Show must be both of these.
So babyface turns. The Bryan example is a very good one. That was probably like one of the last huge reactions that we've seen on modern wrestling television. Heel turn for me, it'll always stand out, even if it was just for a stupid one match. I remember losing my shit when Shawn Michaels kicked Hogan. Like, that was like, oh, that's awesome. And then for the rest of the month, he acted like Shawn Michaels of old. And I always thought that was cool. Babyface turns. There's a lot to choose from. I'm going to let Callum say words and come back to me too.
Well, in terms of face turns, the one that resonates most with me is Batista. I think that's slow build towards it because they built it up for several months in the lead up to it, and then just that iconic moment of him putting the thumbs down to Triple H was just perfectly built up to, and I think that's one of the best feuds of the last 15 years or so. It's just the way that was all presented. Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth reuniting.
Yeah, both really good ones.
One of a really classic one. And one that, like Rob was saying about the Shawn Michaels thing, one that was definitely a one-night deal was Steve Austin's babyface turn in 2001 when he comes back as the old Stone Cold Steve Austin and receives arguably the loudest pop in Raw history. Just coming through, storming back into the arena in his pickup truck and beating up everybody in the Alliance, and the crowd just going absolutely crazy for it. And then, of course, they turned him heel in less than a week afterwards because they can't help themselves.
Because 2001.
Heel turns. And you'd be remiss to not mention Tommaso Ciampa on Johnny Gargano from last year's TakeOver. Whichever takeover that was, it's quite a while ago, and they all blend together.
It was Chicago.
Yeah.
It was Chicago, 2017.
Yeah, so it's a fair while ago now, but that was like the way that they framed it all together with the like little mark coming at the end of it as well before like breaking away from that, and then actually Ciampa just beating the crap out of him, and the crowd reaction was great. Seth Rollins turning on the Shield. Very unexpected.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Chris Jericho turning on, like, he'd come back in 2008, 2007, but like in 2008 he was becoming quite stale with his old character. So that him putting Michaels through the Jeritron led him to like revive his career with the like the slow talking best in the world character. I really like Trish Stratus's turn on Chris Jericho in WrestleMania 20. It was just a very, because Trish is a great heel, and it was so like vindictive. Like, it was so easy to hate her off the back of it. And then there's one that I can't frame in any way whatsoever because it's technically a heel turn, but the guy was already a heel, so I don't know how you can really call it. But the Festival of Friendship, Kevin Owens turning on Chris Jericho. But that's just going from being a heel to another heel. So I can't even call it a face turn because it's not like Jericho's the one who's instigating it. But that I think that needs to be mentioned just because of how great of a segment it was.
Also, Hogan turning in '96 just because of how monumental that was.
The third man. That's another one that's up there. Triple H turning on Daniel Bryan was really good.
Yes. For one of just like modern times and something I got to experience on TV, Callum said it. Rollins breaking up the Shield, and had they not done this like last farewell run where everything was good, like that would have been just one of the best and saddest turns. Everybody loved the Shield to the point where like they had done all this stuff with Ambrose just this year, and when they put them back together like a month later, people lost their minds. Like that is just a stable that people will always love. Face turns, it's really hard because there's a lot of them, but none of them for me are just like, this is the greatest thing. So I'm gonna say, kind of like Callum did with Festival of Friendship, Hunter was already a heel, but the Randy Orton beatdown that just makes Randy Orton lose his mind and become the sadistic person he is today, probably one of the better turns I've seen as a fan.
I like the whole Mega Powers explode. Macho Man turns heel. Eventually, later on, Macho Man turns babyface and reunites with Miss Elizabeth. Like, that's a really good, like, you kind of get both. We mentioned Hulk Hogan. We mentioned Rollins, Batista. Back in the day, Virgil's turn was big. That was a big deal. Bret Hart turning heel and being the whole anti-America thing. I loved that back in the day. That was great. Paul Bearer's turn on The Undertaker, hitting him with the urn in the Buried Alive match. Not the Buried Alive match, the Boiler Room Brawl. Owen Hart's turn on Bret was really well done. Oh, fuck. Shawn Michaels, Barbershop. Another great one.
Of course.
So there's a lot of them out there. I don't know what I would pick for my favorite for both.
I would go like more in terms of the old school ones because I think some of the old school ones are framed really well, like Andre turning on Hulk Hogan because of the it wasn't like in a big like attack or anything like that, but just him coming out and aligning himself with Bobby Heenan was just a great visual. And like even further back than that, you could probably talk about like Sting getting turned on by the Four Horsemen, or Larry Zbyszko turning on Bruno Sammartino. That was supposed to be like a big deal. And Orndorff going against Hulk Hogan, which was going to be like the backup WrestleMania 3 main event. I think some of those ones were just, they felt more emotionally driven than some of the ones nowadays, which seem to be a bit more, more shock value. More shock value. Like they turn people to just have that immediate shock rather than having a long-term plan for it.
Do you think there's
any like good babyface or heel turns this year? I mean, we're going to talk about this in 2 months when we do our awards, but like, I think of
technically any. Ronda turned heel this year.
She definitely did.
Yeah.
Like Elias turned heel at the Royal Rumble. That was kind of like just kind of going back to the status quo, though. He had a lot of like people teasing that they were turning and then not really going through with it. Like Alexa Bliss has been a babyface and a heel like 17 times this year.
Yeah, like Charlotte all of a sudden is a heel again.
Yet all the reports are that their plan is for her to be a babyface, which is like, well, then why are you booking her to hate people and be the, I like
Daniel Bryan. I mean, Daniel Bryan's turned babyface, but there hasn't been a definitive turn. Essentially, I mean, he clearly is babyface now, but there wasn't really a moment where he became babyface.
Well, I think that's what happened before. Like with the Team Hell No stuff, Bryan was never a face. It just sort of naturally morphed.
Yeah, so I can't think of any other ones that are like really definitive at this point.
Well, that good old Tainara Kanshi turning heel at Worlds Collide thing. That's what we're going to go with. More on that when we do our awards.
Wasn't Johnny a healer, Gargano, earlier this year?
Yeah.
That was interesting.
Let's go to Peter's questions. Rob, have you shown Tony botch mode? Nope, he hasn't. I have no idea what botch mode is.
You haven't? Okay. So this is Peter singing Brie Bella's theme song. I had told Caroline to show you, but I will find a way to show you.
All right, I'll check that out when we get a chance to. Another question from Peter. Now that the B team is on SmackDown with King Corbin, do you think that the B team should become the Jesters?
Yes.
I kind of like that idea quite a bit. Yeah, like they're goofy characters, and it could be a backup
Good on
team.
Peter, because that's phenomenal.
They could do a lot worse with those guys.
Yeah, I think that's actually really kind of fun because the B team, the whole gimmick was like being supportive of these jobbers, and when they're heels, it's just not fun anymore. So if they're Jesters and they're just kind of being like these stupid lackeys, then cool. I like that. Do you think that they should have a second 24/7 championship for the women? And do you think that the 24/7 title has now become a consummate your marriage joke title? Nope, for both of them. One 24/7 title is enough.
Yeah, just stick to the one. I like the fact that it has an intergender element to it.
Currently, it's still the Bollywood Boys as champion, right?
Yeah, Sunil.
It's Sunil, but they were called the Bollywood Boys as a unit for some reason.
The Bollywood Boys, a.k.a. the Singh Brothers, a.k.a.
Sunil.
Sunil, yeah. Are you guys watching every promotion? WWE's 5 shows, AEW, NWA, etc. Yep. I'm not watching Impact, I'm not watching ROH, but I am watching every WWE show, both the AEW shows, as well as all of the YouTube stuff, like Being the Elite and all that. And I'm watching WWE Day Of, like all those special things. I did not watch The Bump yet today. I don't know if today's going to be my cutoff of that, because I really have not liked The Bump. But
they keep announcing major things that, as a reporter, I should at least have it on as background noise, but I refuse.
I don't like Dan Vollmeyer.
It's
and,
not.
I don't like the setup of the whole thing, and it's just like a waste. And now
I've
watched.
That it's a bad idea.
Yeah, it could work pretty well, but it doesn't. I don't like the people that they have on there. I don't like. I don't mind. What's his name? Matt Camp. I don't mind him, and I think that there's something to Ryan Popola that could be a lot of fun. I like him, and Kayla's just sort of like a mic stand. Like, she doesn't have much of a personality. I wish that they would put Kathy Kelly on there. I think that she would probably get a little bit better off on that. I don't like Evan Mack, and I don't like Dan Vollmeyer, though. I think that their personalities are taking over the show, and I don't want to watch those personalities. So I might watch this episode, and this might be the one where I just go, you know what? I don't like it anymore. And I'm watching NWA Power, although this past episode was rough, and I think I might not watch anymore because we'll get into that when we talk about it. But that's another future question for Frankie. But yeah, I'm watching all the WWE shows and both the AEW shows and all the YouTube stuff and NWA, and it's a pain in the ass.
So this is where I stand right now. I watch Raw, I watch SmackDown, and I literally do play-by-play for WrestleDome, for NXT. I watch Dynamite when I can, which isn't my preferred method for this. I'd rather watch it live, but I've been watching it when I can. I enjoy it. NWA Power, I think, is a phenomenal show. We'll get more into that later. I do not watch Ring of Honor. I don't think it's unfair to say, and Callum, you can cut me off if you feel like I'm being a dick, but they have no hook right now. I am watching Impact because they're going through a boom period with Access TV, so it's kind of become a little higher on the priority list, if that makes sense. And Bound for Glory was okay.
in terms of the shows, I skim both Raw and SmackDown. I can't stand watching either of them anymore, at least to the full extent. So I just skip through segments, and if I see something that I'm interested in watching, I'll watch it. If not, I'll just fast forward through the rest of it.
Look at this guy bragging, Tony.
I watch NXT. I obviously don't watch Main Event. I watch NXT UK every now and again. It's probably more often now than I used to, but it's not like the most like thing that I'm going to stick to. I don't watch 205 Live. I watch AEW Dynamite. I watch AEW Dark. Enjoying both of those ones. NWA Power, again, we're going to talk about that more in detail, but I am watching that. I don't watch any of Ring of Honor. I don't have any interest in that promotion anymore. I think that it's probably better off dead at this point, and that some of their top wrestlers are signed up by like promotions that are actually going to do something with them. Other stuff, I obviously watch occasional New Japan tours and obviously all the pay-per-views. And I occasionally watch Impact Wrestling, but it's not like crucial, like must-see TV for me. That probably pretty much covers it, other than just like a few like specials that I'll occasionally see on like Fight TV or something like that.
Now, is there anything that's just on the air over there that we don't get?
Not anymore. We used to get World Sport and stuff like that, but that doesn't exist anymore because WWE killed the UK independence thing. So, yeah, there's nothing here that I would watch or am interested in watching that's separate from everything else. Like, I could watch all the Progress shows and stuff like that, but they're just special events more than there's definitely no week-to-week television show.
So out of the ones that are, I mean, nobody watches Main Event because why would you? But out of like the main 3 WWE shows, actually, let's lump in NXT UK and 205 Live, even though I'm the only one who watches those. Out of those shows, AEW's 2 shows and NWA Power, what would you say is your favorite and your least favorite?
NWA Power is my favorite. And my least favorite is either Raw or SmackDown. They're kind of on equal footing right now.
I'm going to say NXT is my favorite, and 205 Live should fold.
My least favorite right now is probably NXT UK. It's tough for me to get into it because I don't really like most of the performers all that much. They're not bad, but like, can I really get excited for Travis Banks versus Ligero or Oliver Carter versus Saxon Huxley? Like, it's just, nah, I can't get into them. And it's just more time taken out. Raw is a pain in the ass to get through, and SmackDown can be a pain in the ass to get through, but at least there might be like something interesting on those shows. So NXT UK is probably my least favorite on the WWE side of the things. Dark's good. I wish that I could focus more on Dynamite. I really wish that Dynamite was on another night. That would be so much easier for me, because I think that overall Dynamite might be my favorite. But I am so burnt out that I have to watch NXT and do that, and then by the time I watch Dynamite, I already know the results because I will try to get that up as soon as possible. So I'm watching something that I know the results of, and that makes me kind of tune out. So I'm disappointed in that. But I will say, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, NWA Power is kind of getting into my worst. Let's move on to another question before we get to that, though. Cody said that he could use the Cody Rhodes name, but he won't because he has built the name Cody up. What do we think? Should he go back to that? Or should he stick with the whole Cody thing? I think it's stupid that he just goes by Cody. I think he should just go by Cody Rhodes and just cut to the chase.
Yeah, if I was Cody, and if that's how I really felt, I wouldn't have come out and said, I can use the name, but I just like being Cody. Really? You don't want to be Cody Rhodes, son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, and they'll make the argument, well, everybody knows who I am. Yeah, but it's stupid just calling you Cody, because that's why they like it when you're with Dustin and Brandy because it's Cody and Dustin Rhodes. Cody and Brandy Rhodes. Just be Cody Rhodes.
I like to think that I don't mind him being called Cody because there is an element maybe to his thought process where he doesn't want to just be known as the son of Dusty Rhodes and wants to stand on his own, which I can kind of respect. I would hope that there may be some sort of long-term story where Cody's conflicted with the idea of taking the Rhodes name back, and that because he doesn't want to just. He's enjoying being on his own thing, but maybe he just needs that added emphasis, or is now ready in his life to take the Rhodes name back. He's, I don't know, come to terms enough with his father's passing that he wants to carry on the legacy again and takes on like the full name. So I think there's room for that, and then it would eventually make sense. But by the end of in the near future, I would hope that he would go back to Cody Rhodes.
But the issue I have there is, if you're like, well, I want to separate myself from that, then why do you call yourself the American Nightmare?
And why is it like it's constantly beating you over the head? The idea that this is Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is Dusty Rhodes' son, and we're gonna call it the Dusty position instead of the Gorilla position.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, it's constant Dusty Rhodes type stuff, and if they wanted to do, I like the idea that it would be like, let me step out of the shadow and then I can earn the name to be like the Rhodes guy that's out there now, because Dustin, I mean, even though he's still wrestling, he clearly wants to retire and just be like the head trainer. That would be cool if they stepped away from the whole Dusty Rhodes type thing. And I don't know, I don't like it. I think that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Which, by the way, a phrase that I don't like.
I don't like that phrase either, but I do want to talk about Dynamite real quick. It's very good. It's very good wrestling. I think I'm more than burnt out on the style of wrestling.
Yep.
That it's not hitting me the way that I think it should.
I enjoy Dynamite more when they're not just saying, here's two people, watch them do a suicide dive.
I've been enjoying the fuck out of Jericho. Jericho stands head and shoulders above everybody on that roster because he can control an audience. And he's not just going out there to do spot after spot after spot. I do the WrestleZone daily, and Kevin kind of got on me about, because I made the joke of, well, if Randy Orton went to AEW, he could teach them how to, effectively use a damn cutter and not just first move of the match is a fucking RKO. Like, what is that? Why is that a thing?
Yeah, like that WrestleMania 25 match. What the fuck was that?
That's a finisher. That's completely different.
Yeah.
That is completely different. That is a finisher.
I'm not entirely sold on Dynamite, but I'm enjoying it enough. And maybe a lot of that is just due to the fact that it's not WWE. And I know that shouldn't be the argument, but it is, just because of how stale everything has gotten with the way WWE happens. So any break is going to be at least push it that little bit further than it would go on its own merits.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
But and people say that's unfair. Well, if WWE was better or was doing stuff that was compelling me right now, then I wouldn't have that opinion maybe. But I still think what they're doing is good. I think they're trying to make stars quickly, and by using their most established names to do so, with like the Private Party against Young Bucks match. So I think it'll work over time. I just they're learning. Well, they're making mistakes, but I'm hoping they're learning from them.
Here's the thing, though. Oh god,
I was gonna say the one thing they need to do is they need to apply the rules in tag team matches. That is annoying me, with the fact that they have some really good, really great tag teams, but they don't. It's so blatant how much the referees just completely lose control of those matches and don't apply any sort of rules or regulations to them.
I'm gonna go a little further here. They need to really start applying the rules in general, because poor Jim Ross, and I'm going to say poor Jim Ross here because I know he's getting a lot of shit on commentary, because what he tries to do on commentary is simply not what the fans of AEW are looking for, because he's trying to tell a story, and he's trying to be like, well, wins and losses matter here, and hey, ref, do something about that guy biting the other guy. Can you get some control here? And it's coming across like, well, look at curmudgeonly old JR, who doesn't understand how wrestling is now. But all he's trying to do is tell a story. I think that's where they need the help. And that is why, again, a guy like Jericho completely stands out right now.
Well, to backtrack on what Callum was saying about making things feel different, and I think that if WWE was doing everything properly, Raw and SmackDown and NXT and NXT UK and 205 Live would all feel different. And then we would probably all enjoy them more, because it wouldn't feel like you're watching 3 hours of one show and then 2 hours of the same show and then 2 hours of the same show and then an hour of the same show, then an hour of the same show, and being like, oh, God, I've watched 10 hours worth of the same show every single week. There are slight differences, obviously, like the crowd at Full Sail is different from being in an arena for Monday Night Raw, and the dead crowd on 205 Live is totally different, everything like that, but by and large, everything's mostly the same. Like, they cut the same type of promos, and they have the same type of way that they film things, and that can be to the point where you're like, God, I want something different, and then something like an NWA Power comes along, and it's like, oh, thank God, it's just different. Just that that it's different makes it easier to stomach and everything. So, yeah, I'm burned out. Last question from Peter. Which Hell in a Cell finish do you like better for Seth or Bray? The one that happened, or Peter's suggestion, which is that the Funhouse music plays, the ring goes dark, the rabbit pops up, bites the Fiend, the lights go out, normal Bray Wyatt pops up, and then he gets the curb stomp and loses. And the rationality is that Rambling Rabbit sucked the Fiend out of Bray Wyatt. Fuck it, go with that one. Go with the wacky idea. I think it would have came off a little bit better than the one that they did, actually. We want more Rambling Rabbit.
Well, we're gonna get into this, so maybe I should say it, but it's so clear that this was not the plan. This was not the plan going into Crown Jewel, and it's like now they're just scrambling.
Yeah, I think the idea, like whether it was Rambling Rabbit getting involved or anything else, some sort of confliction which could have led to the sweater-wearing Bray Wyatt getting into the match. But I just don't know how that practically functions. Like, how long would you have to turn the lights off for Bray Wyatt to get out of the thing, get up and get into the Mr. Rogers like sweater and all that stuff? I don't know how much of a quick change expert he is. Maybe he could do that kind of that like stand-up magic where you just lift up a curtain for 5 minutes and you're in a completely different, for like 2 seconds and you're in a completely different outfit.
Well, they could have at least done something with Rollins at this point where it's like, maybe he's been infected by the Fiend. But they're not even doing that. They're just sort of like, hey, I had to do what I had to do. Okay, we're going to have this other match. All right, we're sorry.
Yeah, they're basically like, you didn't like that? Well, we're going to do it again. This time we promise we won't fuck up. Yet they'll probably fuck up. We'll talk about that next week when we do our Crown Jewel predictions, because, man, I am not looking forward to this pay-per-view. I think that this is going to be a real pain in the ass. Let's get to Frankie's questions. These are going to be the last group of ones that we have here. Thoughts on Halloween in general? Do you like to give out the candy? Do you like watching the kids all dressed up? That sounds creepy. Experiences as a kid, memories, etc. I think we all are probably in agreement. It's more fun when you're a kid than when you're an adult.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of a shame. But it can still be fun sometimes. This weekend, Dace is throwing a party, and if everything goes well, Caroline and I are going to go dressed up as Marla and the narrator from Fight Club. So, like, that'll be fun. But I'm not all into, like, being super crazy about the trick-or-treaters. Like, to me, it's not so much like every kid's going to come up and I'm going to be like, wow, what are you dressed up as? Like, whatever. Sometimes I can do that. Sometimes I've got, like, the proper mood, you know, then I might kind of be like more in tune to play along with all that kind of stuff. Some other times I'm just sort of like, yeah, here's your fucking candy, you know. Although I do love it when like a kid will come up dressed up as something that looks really stupid and you're trying not to laugh, or it's just like some kind of weird box kind of thing. Any memories? I don't know. I'll go back to memories. What about you guys? What do you think about Halloween?
It's nice. I don't like when people try to take holidays that are for kids and they try to put the central focus on something else. Like, well, kids shouldn't, like, for kids you have to grow up in overly religious households that are like, you will not celebrate this, and then they see all their friends at school celebrating. I think that kind of stuff sucks, but I think overall Halloween is a very fun time.
Yeah, Halloween is it's a lot of fun. It's not as widely celebrated, obviously, here in the UK, but we definitely do the trick or treating side of things. I've done like pumpkin carving things before, so that's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of setup, especially like just emptying out the pumpkin and stuff like that. It just feels like, wow, this is the only time of year that you, as a vegetable, are in any way useful. But
yeah, you don't hear people even eating pumpkin stuff in like, I don't know, May.
No.
Yeah, nobody wants that pumpkin spice latte in there for some reason.
No, but everybody goes fucking apeshit for it in September.
But then, yeah, I can deal with the trick or treating and people knocking on the door and stuff like that. One day a year is fine. If it was any more than that, I'd probably go crazy. But I can deal with that. I don't think I'd have any like real experiences. I know I obviously went trick or treating a couple of times as a child. I can't remember whatever I was ever dressed as or anything like that because it doesn't really stick out to me.
I know I've dressed up a couple times as wrestlers. I was Hulk Hogan when I was like 5. I was Dude Love one year. Cactus Jack another year. I don't think I was any wrestlers anytime recently. I always like this one stupid story just because it's something that stands out to me. One year I was giving out candy and I had 2 separate like buckets, like little pumpkin bucket things. One of them had all like sugary type stuff, like lollipops and Smarties and like that, like that kind of stuff. And the other one had chocolate based things in there because I kind of figured some kids like chocolate. I'm more of like a chocolate person than like the gummy type stuff and whatever. And so I, go to my front door and there's like a group of kids there or whatever, and I'm like, oh, like, hey kids, like, oh, you're a Power Ranger, like that's cool, like, kind of bullshit. And I'm like, so do you want to grab something from like the sugar thing or for the chocolate thing? And this one kid, eyes bulge out and he goes, I want sugar. And his mom or dad or whatever was just kind of like, give me this look like he doesn't fucking need that. Like, I always thought that was like one of the best examples of a kid just being all like, fucking Halloween's great! Ah! I'm SpongeBob! Or like, whatever the fuck he was. I went around one year dressed up as a suit. Just like literally I put on a suit, didn't have an idea in mind. And when people would say, what are you dressed up as? I'd say, guess. And whatever they said, I was like, there you go. I just wanted to get extra candy. This is when I was like, I don't know, 12 or something at the time. Like, I don't want to bother with this crap. Let me just put a suit on. And they're like, oh, you're one of like the Blues Brothers, right? And I'm like, sure, I've seen that movie. Like, yeah.
That's the most Tony story I've ever heard. Like, yeah, I really want the benefit, but I'm not gonna do this festive thing.
Yeah,
I'm putting on a suit and fuck you.
Be like, I could be Mr. Orange from Reservoir Dogs. I could be James Bond. I could be, whatever. I could be
Men in Black.
Yeah, Men in Black, sure. It's like, well, where's your thing? Men in Black that got it stolen. Like, it's just like, give me your king size Snickers bar or whatever it is. Yeah, so let's move on to the food questions. Now, I lumped all these together. Frankie had put them separately, but I figured we could do like a speed round. So, you like it or not? Red velvet cake. I'm saying chocolate's better. Just regular chocolate.
chocolate is better, but red velvet's good.
Nope.
Cream cheese or butter on your bagel? I'm going butter.
Both.
Just butter.
Chocolate covered strawberries. I like them both better when they're separate, but I do like them.
Separate.
Yeah, just give me the strawberries. No chocolate involved.
And are you a gum or a Tic Tac person? Give me the Tic Tacs. Not a fan of gum.
I'm fine with both, but I'm more commonly eating Tic Tacs than I am chewing gum.
I don't like gum and I don't like Tic Tacs.
And what just popped in my mind is, do you have any more gum? More gum? If you don't know what that is, look it up. If you do know what it is, drop a comment below. I never mentioned merchandise shops. Huh. So, merch shops. TeePublic, Redbubble, Fanboys Anonymous, Smark Out Moment, A-Mango Tees. Buy the t-shirt. There you go. That's the plug. When Ruby Riott comes back, do you think that they'll just team up the Riot Squad again? I really hope not.
They
want Liv
are
Morgan.
on the same brand.
They are, but I want Liv Morgan to have a new character, and I don't want her to just be a new character inside of the Riot Squad, because then she's not going to have a new character. She's just going to be the same thing again. And I want Sarah Logan to go more into the Viking thing. And Ruby Riott stands alone. She's fine on her own.
Yeah, I think Ruby has enough about her that she can be her own character and have a bit of an evolution in her own area. Like, I think then they need more strong baby faces. And I think that because she has kind of obviously she's great as a heel, but she has enough of an underdog story and an alternative look that she could probably carry off the babyface thing pretty well as well.
And we talked about this earlier. What do you think about NWA Power? Here's my thought. I'm very glad that it's different. And for the people that would like that type of presentation, it seems like it's fantastic. The studio show thing, the old school wrestling, all that kind of, that whole package, they seem like they know what they're doing. But I can't get into it. I'm liking parts of it, and most of it I'm just not liking at all. I don't like, for instance, the repetition of how many times every promo sounds the same to me. Every promo is, well, let me tell you something, the guy that's here that I don't know your name, but it doesn't really fucking matter because you're just some dude. We have real men here in NWA Power, and now that NWA is back, isn't it great? And then the couple people in the crowd are like, yeah, I like NWA. And then it's like, yeah, it's great because we have real men here. And NWA is back. Isn't it great? And they go, yeah, real men. And they go, now I respect my opponent. You know, he's one of the greats. Whoever he is, doesn't fucking matter if you ever heard his name or not or whatever. He's one of the best because he's a real man. And we have real men here in NWA Power. Isn't it great that NWA is back? And it's like, oh my God, how many fucking times do we have to have this promo? Every heel seems like they're somebody who's not quite that much of an asshole enough, and every babyface just is like Tim Storm, for instance, is like the Mama Storm stuff. I'm not into it. I don't know if I'm supposed to like or dislike Eli Drake, and I think that Aaron Stevens is playing too much into the jokiness of the whole thing. For that matter, too, those little like commercials that they're doing. Why are they parodying themselves? It makes sense with Southpaw Regional Wrestling, but that's a parody show. So is NWA Power supposed to be real, or is it supposed to be something I'm making fun of?
What do you mean? Like the Austin Idol stuff?
Yeah, the
that's
hair
real.
cream and all that.
Well, the Austin Idol trading school is real.
Well, the most recent one with the invisible hair cream stuff.
Yeah, I can understand what you might think, where it's going too far in the, all right, this is a throwback, but I think that at its core, it presents how good studio wrestling once was and can be again, and it gives it just a different look, rather than, hey, we're in the Krispy Kreme Center in Mississauga, Canada, and you know, it's like, look at this audience, it's 10,000 people. It's like, I like the intimate setting, you know, I like the fact that it says Power, and like there's very clearly defined broadcasters. I don't like the Powers with 3 R's, but I can get over that.
NWA Power.
Power.
Or maybe it's like you're supposed to roll the R. It's like Power.
That was actually pretty good.
Now, Callum, tell us why it's the best thing ever.
I really appreciate the simplicity of it. I think there's a real sense in basically a lot of wrestling promotions to overcomplicate everything. I understand that your reservations about certain people not appearing as heels and babyface. That's probably the biggest issue that I have of it so far. But I think they're setting things up, because I think it's quite obvious the way things are progressing that Nick Aldis is being presented as a babyface right now, but the stuff that's going on with Camille is eventually going to turn him a heel. So I like that they're laying the groundwork for that. I like the fact that they're using Tim Storr as a veteran, really. Obviously, he is a veteran, but utilising that part of it's probably the last couple of years of his career, but they're going to try and make the most of it and present him as a really strong babyface. And I think Eli Drake is trying to is a babyface for now, but might transition into heel down the line because he can play both roles pretty well. I'm liking the stuff they're doing with Aaron Stevens, even if it is a bit campy. It's setting him up. He's definitely one of the most definitive heels on the entire roster. Same with the Dawson brothers. And there's some good wrestling on the show. It's not really over the top in many places. Like, you're not going to see this type of matches that you'll see week to week in NXT or in AEW, but it's wrestling that tells a very basic story that's built up on the idea of studio wrestling, which is you put a name guy against a job guy more often than not, and you have maybe one, potentially two match between two named opponents in the main event. That's pretty just an old school throwback. I have reservations about the women's division. I think if Marty Bell is one of your most prominent female wrestlers, then you don't have a strong women's division because she's not very good. Alison Kay is fine. Obviously, she's an impressive worker, but she can't hold the entire division up on her own. But I appreciate the fact that it's so. Again, we discussed it with like AEW and stuff like that, but it's so wildly different than anything else that's going on right now. It's not even the fact that because AEW and WWE is different, but that you can spot similarities between the two of them, and that there's enough familiarity that maybe that's a positive for certain people. But I just crave the fact that it's such a different form of presenting wrestling than anything else that's going on in North America right now. And that's what's driving me to it. And the fact that they emphasize the importance of promo work, like real promo work, where people are just given a few footnotes and gone out there to actually say what they want to say. And maybe that occasionally does lead to a bit of repetitiveness over just the real man stuff and, it's great that NWA is still around. I think the stuff where they're talking about how great is NWA's back and things will die down after a few episodes because it's not like you can get to like a year and a half down the line and say, hey, isn't it great that NWA's still back? And it's just like, yeah, we know you've been doing it for a year and a half. It's been here for quite a while. But I think once the promos are just so much more organic than anything you'd see in WWE.
So what's worse, Tony? Is it great that the NWA is back and everybody's a real man, or reminding you that you've got to have an opponent?
I got a feeling that they're going to pull that promo out. Like, that's what I'm expecting here. I
like
would
that
not
as
be
well.
surprised at all if they had Stan Hansen pop up and say, NWA is great, it's back, and there's real men that are opponents. Like,
well, would you rather that then? Would you rather these sort of promos, which can occasionally get a little bit repetitive, but are clearly coming from an organic place and they're being told off the cuff and they're reacting to what the audience are saying? Or would you rather have Chad Gable or Shorty Gable stand there in the middle of the ring talk about how it's okay to be short for 5-10 minutes?
That's the thing where there's positives to NWA Power for sure. And when somebody can have a more natural promo, that's always going to be better. I just wish that they didn't have that type of like feedback system, kind of both ways, I guess, like from like the management side of things and from like the fans too, because it seems like the management is telling them get over the idea that NWA is back and that there's the real man thing, and I don't like that. And I also don't like when they're cutting these promos and you could hear like one dipshit in the crowd that's just kind of like, yeah, tell him that, whatever. And then he goes like, yeah, Jim in row 3, like that. I'm not a fan of that. This also kind of gives me this hipster vibe. Like, this is the vinyl of pro wrestling.
Yeah,
and
I'll give you that.
Like, again, with like any kind of fandom, go ahead and enjoy it. It's not going to take anything away from me. And if I stop watching NWA Power, I hope that they succeed really well and people that love it can watch it like twice a week even, or whatever it is. But like, it's proving itself to not be for me, because the idea that like I didn't like old school wrestling, and the more that they do the old school wrestling stuff, it's just something that I'm not all that into. So Josephus to me is like, so it's just some schlub who's very slowly running around this small studio area. Am I supposed to laugh at it? Am I supposed to think it's serious? Am I like, what? Like, it's kind of like, I guess I'm supposed to treat this as a sport, yet I feel like it's more Family Double Dare from Nickelodeon. You know what I mean? Like, something's off on it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not connecting with it or whatever, but there are positives.
I think you hit that nail on the head with it's the vinyl for pro wrestling.
Yeah, I can definitely settle on that term. It's the vinyl, where WWE is like the very cold, mechanical, but much more like cleanly operating, like
streaming system.
Yeah.
The mainstream kind of music scene.
WWE is Spotify, NWA is a vinyl company.
Yeah, and they're both good.
AEW is Pandora.
Yeah, and they're both good for different purposes. It's just when you have something which is so cold and clinical, it's sometimes nice to go to something which just feels like, it's the difference between buying a donut from Krispy Kreme or getting one that's fresh out of the oven for me.
Yeah.
It's the difference between, Domino's and your local pizza place on the corner.
Yeah, they'll both do the job, but one of them just feels a bit more like home almost.
Yeah.
WWE can learn from NWA. But at the same time, if WWE became NWA, like if everything in wrestling was this NWA style, this wouldn't be my job.
No, it's the fact that this is the only company that's doing it, is the big, well, not the only one that's doing it in a very like grand scale at the moment, is its biggest selling point.
Big fan of the theme. Forgot to mention that.
Yeah, Into the Fire.
Into the Fire. That's catchy. Might have to download
I like that that's their name of their pay-per-view, but I don't like that, much like how Power has 3 R's, it seems like Into the Fire is literally Into the Fire emoji.
Yeah, into the 3 fire emojis.
I like they show the cast in there, like the opening credits as well. They just show every wrestler that's going to be on.
I thought it was like they're showing their champions.
No, because they show all the people that are going to be appearing. Well, not all of them. They obviously don't show some of the lesser people on the card. They just, because it changes from week to week based on the people that are appearing on the show. So Nick Aldis is always on it, because Nick Aldis has been on every show so far, but sometimes they'll have James Storm on it, but sometimes he won't be if he's not on it, or it just they've probably filmed like a dozen of those with their highest ranking stars.
Kudos to Aldis. We talked about this a little bit in the Megamaniacs, but great transformation for him over the years.
Yeah, I think if the NWA ever does make the transition away from YouTube and onto television, it will be off the back of his hard work more than anything else.
If they continue this whole emoji thing, would you pay to see the Eggplant Peach pay-per-view?
Well, honestly, that's impacted a lot of that at Bound for Glory too, where some of the Titantrons were like literally just emojis. Like Kylie Ray was like literally the smiley face emoji, and then her name. Joey Ryan had like a mustache emoji and eggplant, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Is this what our graphics teams are doing now? Just emoji with a nice background?
Somebody's like, those kids like that emoji movie, didn't they?
So.
I need to say, sorry, I know I want to move on to the final question, but the thing that I hate the most about NWA Power It's whoever they've hired to write their YouTube descriptions. Like, as a copywriter, I read those things, and the fact that they've not capitalized the word power and they've misspelled out Nick
Ooh.
Aldis's surname with
So,
2 L's instead of 1 L. I just read that and go, for fuck's sake, like, you need to write this, a YouTube description, once a week, and you can't even get that right. Like, the least you could do is hire someone literate.
well,
Maybe that's how they got the name Power. The person just
Yeah.
They were like, you spell power that way, right? The original name was going to be P-O-U...
R, like, under the A poor.
P-O-U-E-R. Power.
NWA poor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to do that a lot when I'm, like, putting the YouTube videos for, like, that and MLW. I'm constantly, like, going through and fixing little things, and I'm like, all right, I don't feel so bad about the job I do now. You know? Everybody makes mistakes. Even those that work for a giant company.
I hope that they don't mess up the emojis, because that's a thing.
Into
If Into the Fire ends up having, like, into the bunch of crying faces or something like that. Into the tears.
Into the eggplant.
Yeah, into the eggplant. I'm falling. Let's wrap things up here. Final question. What are you predicting the matches will end up being for War Games? I have no fucking idea. The more that we keep going through these episodes of NXT, I feel like they have no idea, too.
It's a different process for them because they've gone from being able to book 3 to 4 weeks of shows in advance, and now they're just booking week to week. So it's a completely different system, and I think it's leading to situations where they don't necessarily know what they're going to be doing next week until the weekends, and then they start thinking about it.
So right now, I'm thinking War Games match is Undisputed Era versus DIY, Balor, and Riddle. I'm thinking we get some kind of Pete Dunne versus Killian Dane setup, but then Damian Priest is also in there, and I think we get a multi-man match for the women because there's like 6 women who want to fight for that title right now, and it's.
I think.
Can you have a multi-man match for the women?
No, multi non-binary gender person. I don't know. Like, what the hell do you want from it?
Multi-superstar match.
Yeah.
I think in terms of women's, I think we'll get a straight up Shayna Baszler against Rhea Ripley match for the title. Because I think Rhea Ripley is someone who you can use the babyface to take the title off of Shayna Baszler, and then almost like in the next couple of weeks turn her heel, so she could feud with Candice or somebody like that down the road. The War Games match is curious because I don't know. The one thing I know for certain is, well, no for certain, but one thing I'm pretty sure has happened would be it's not going to be Imperium versus Undisputed Era, but one of the 2 teams that's going to be in those matches is either Imperium or the Undisputed Era. I think if Undisputed Era aren't in the War Games match, then Adam Cole's defending against Tommaso Ciampa. But if the Undisputed Era is in it, then it probably will be some combination of Ciampa, Gargano, Balor should be in that match, unless they're trying to like just build him from the ground up and give him an exhibition match for the first one. Obviously, Velveteen Dream can't be involved because he's out injured for a while now, it seems.
So I'm going with those 4, and I think they all have like demon paint on because I think that's a cool visual. You can't start 2 at the ground floor with Balor in NXT, considering this is a guy who is the longest running NXT champion and just earlier this year fought Brock Lesnar. Like, you can't be like, okay, here you go, fight Cassius Ohno.
Well, no, I wouldn't say like start from the ground up, but maybe he has, instead of being in part of that War Games match, he has a match with Dijakovic at War Games instead. Like just a showcase where he can beat someone who's got some name value attached to him.
Even though I've been open both years now saying War Games is my favorite match because I think it's so fun, I don't like that they've fallen into the pitfall of It's November. You know what that means. War Games.
How far away is War Games? It's November
4 weeks.
like 20 something or other, right?
I think it's 4 weeks now.
So this is tough because it's like we know we're getting a War Games match. Obviously, we have to.
Now,
That's kind
now.
of the whole point. I mean,
Yeah.
then again, we've had Survivor Series where we haven't had a Survivor Series match, so that's,
Yeah, so we're going to get a women's title match.
we could get possibly a women's War Games match.
With
If they throw, like, because there's no, like, it doesn't have to be 4-on-4. It could be 3-on-3-on-3. It could be, whatever like that. So we could get something like the 3 horsewomen against, like, I don't know, Belair and Ripley and Candice or something like that. I mean, I would think more so that they would possibly do like 3-on-3-on-3 and have like the 3 horsewomen versus Candice, Dakota Kai, and Tegan Knox, and then the other 3 are Belair and Ripley and Shirai. Like, they could maybe do that. Or they could do some kind of like fatal 4-way or fatal 5-way or 6-pack challenge. And maybe that would actually be the way to get the title off of Shayna Baszler without having Shayna lose. They could have like Bianca Belair pins Candice LeRae or something like that. They have done that in the past.
Yeah,
And
I personally don't like it when they do that because
yeah,
I think
me neither.
if you build a champion up that long, like if it's just a transitional reign, then that's fine. But if you're building a champion up that long, they should be the one to lose the belt. Otherwise, you don't get value onto the person who wins it.
I think that all depends on what they were planning on doing with the draft. Like, we already know that the draft is done, but it doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of sense right now. Like, Raw is kind of struggling with the women's division. SmackDown's got a little bit more options, but at the same time, they haven't sorted out who's the top babyface, and that's kind of confusing. And also, if Shayna Baszler is going to come up to the main roster anytime soon, I think that they go with some kind of multi-woman match, and that's how she drops that title, because then she can win the Royal Rumble, and that could be their way to like bring her up.
Well, she can win the Royal Rumble after losing the title straight away, in a one-on-one match. Because it's not like Baszler. It's not like Baszler's undefeated. If Baszler was undefeated, then I'd see your point. But she has lost matches in NXT.
But remember, they also haven't announced what they're going to do with Takeover. They bumped that out of the Royal Rumble spot.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true. That's true, but I just don't feel like Baszler would need to. If they were so intent on protecting Baszler in terms of the fact that she can't drop the title, win a straight up one-on-one match, then I just don't think that that's so important.
My whole thing with this is I think that they've already done Shirai, they've already done Belair, they've already done LeRae, and they've already done Ripley. Dakota Kai's already gotten her chance. Like, everybody's already fought Baszler, so I can't see any one single match being good enough to be like, wow, this match is happening. My God, it's going to be Shayna Baszler versus Io Shirai again. Like, that to me is like, what? Really? You're just gonna go back and do that again? Like, we're just gonna repeat and just pick from the same jar? Like, that kind of thing?
They could always do even though it was a terrible War Games, the 98 WCW War Games where it's all, like, they're all singles competitors. Because everybody's saying they want Shayna Baszler right now, as it should be. But typically in WWE settings, they only do that when they're like, okay, we're getting some kind of multi-woman championship match.
So I think either we're getting the women are going to be in the War Games, or we're getting some kind of like 6-pack challenge.
There it is, right there. No cage involved, just a 6-pack challenge.
But then we still need to figure out the War Games thing. So that has to be some kind of group in some fashion, whether it's
the totally
Undisputed Era or Imperium, or like not everybody in the Undisputed Era, because it could be like Strong and O'Reilly and Fish, and then Cole defends the championship. They could do like the 3 members of that. All that stuff is so up in the air because Velveteen Dream is injured, Ciampa is back, Gargano's kind of on the sidelines right now, which is a little strange. They got Keith Lee and Dominic Dijakovic are going to fight tonight for the North American Championship, so maybe either of them could be a part of this. They could do like technically speaking, they could do Cole against Finn Balor, and they can do DIY against Fish and O'Reilly for the tag titles. They could do somebody against Roderick Strong, like Matt Riddle. They could do separate matches. Or they could have DIY and Matt Riddle and Finn Balor against the 4 Undisputed Era. That would make perfect sense, too. It kind of depends on how many matches they want to put on the card, too, because this is going to be the first one that they're doing after the NXT switch over to USA. They might end up having a normal pay-per-view worth of like 8 matches that they would do on the main roster. They might switch that up. And that way you can get Pete Dunne versus Killian Dane. And you can get Kushida against Walter well, they already did that. But like, it's tough. Like, I could even see them incorporating an NXT UK and doing something like that. And they have the NXT Cruiserweight Championship now, too. They got to factor that in and do some kind of a match with that, potentially. Leo Rush against, who's the number 1 contender? Tony Nese?
I don't know.
Oh, no, we don't watch.
You're acting like I watch 205 Live, Tony. Stop it.
It's not Oney Lorcan, I don't think. Or actually, it might be Oney Lorcan. I don't fucking remember now. No, I think that's Tony Nese, if I remember correctly. So they could do Tony Nese versus Leo Rush. Could be another match on the card.
That's kind of lame.
I'm starting to think that this is what the card's going to be. Leo Rush versus Tony Nese for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. Some kind of a Fatal 4-Way, Fatal 5-Way, or 6-pack challenge for the NXT Women's Championship. Pete Dunne versus Killian Dane. And then the Undisputed Era versus Balor, Riddle, and DIY. I'm starting to think that that's the 4
We're going to know
matches.
Something by the end of tonight. Balor will be on the show. He's teasing the Demon. Gargano last week said, listen, I'll tell you how I feel about Tommaso next time I see him face to face. That could be tonight. I think by the end of the night, we know where we're going. At least for the main event.
Yeah, I like we've been saying, I just don't think that there's enough clear direction at the moment. Like, if I was to take a guess, it would be that War Games match. I think Baszler and Ripley would be a one-on-one match. I think you get an NXT UK Championship match with Walter. I just don't know who he'd face.
Kushida
maybe
again.
Well, maybe Kushida. Maybe they chuck a Keith Lee into that next, and you do Keith Lee against
That'd be fun.
Walter. And I think they've been subtly building up. Not that it's a match that I necessarily want to see on a takeover show, but they've been slightly building up a Breezango versus the Forgotten Sons feud. So it wouldn't be the biggest shock in the world if that culminated there.
But my question is, where's Kona Reeves in this card?
Catering.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's doing the finest catering.
The finest. All the good Hawaiian stuff.
Only the finest meals. That's what they are. So those are the mailbag questions you guys submitted for October. We greatly appreciate that you sent them in. And obviously, if you did not get a chance to send in questions, or you didn't get your question answered because of whatever reason it was, and you want it to be answered the next time around, send in the questions for the November one. I don't know exactly when we're going to do that, because November is kind of all up in the air with Survivor Series and Thanksgiving and full gear. And I mean, it's all over the place, but I would assume that it would be probably the last week of November. On my schedule right now, we even have extra content listed that I don't know where we're going to fit it in. I still am trying to work on the logo for Time Machine Dream Team, and we got called the spot for the Survivor Series teams. Who knows what even Survivor Series is going to be about. And then, of course, the Patreon stuff. If people start donating more to the Patreon, then we got to figure out a way to do that at some point. So, right now, at the very least, I have this listed as November 27th or so, but that's also the same week as Starrcade. So,
yeah, but you know Starrcade's not going to be a big deal.
No, I mean, if they announce stuff ahead of time and Starrcade's just kind of a nothing show, then we might end up just covering that on the hot tags or something. Or I might just do something separate. I don't know. Starrcade's supposed to be December 1st, so we should probably get the mailbag done before that in any fashion. But there is TakeOver, there is Survivor Series, there's Call the Spot, there's Time Machine Dream Team possibly, there's the Patreon stuff, there's Full Gear. we got a lot going on our way, but we will do a mailbag in November. So send in your questions whenever you get a chance to, and we will answer them when we get around to it. But a part of that whole thing with the November side of things is Champsgiving. So I mentioned this on the video that I posted up on the YouTube channel before. Champsgiving is our tournament that we do in the fall. And last year we did who was the best world champion so far in WWE. And there's been a lot of people voting of just who their favorite superstar is in general, and it doesn't really matter. So if you were to say, like, who's the best Intercontinental Champion of all time, people would be like, I like Roman Reigns. And then it's like, well, what did he do as Intercontinental Champion? He was a great world champion. Not the same thing. So I'm really hoping that people actually stick to it this time. This one is best hardcore champion of all time. So as I mentioned in the other video, by all means, Crash Holly is not some first ballot Hall of Famer above Triple H, but he is a good hardcore champion. And I think that you need to factor that in there when you're working in who is the best hardcore champion. You ignore everything but the hardcore title. So right now we're on the qualifying round. This is going to determine the final 2 people that can round out the top 32 that end up being a part of the tournament. So vote while you can, because I'm going to shut that poll off next Tuesday. And then we will start round 1, and that'll carry on. We'll have the finals on the week of Thanksgiving, and then we'll, at the beginning of December, talk about how everything panned out and who ended up winning, and if whether or not we're going to do a Champsgiving next year. So keep that in mind. Crown Jewel's coming up next week. We got to do our predictions for that. They'll probably be a little bit earlier than normal. We'll probably record that on Tuesday. And that way we can do the whole Crown Jewel thing on Thursday, which also factors into the Halloween discussion we were having earlier. The fact that that's going to happen during Halloween means that
literally in the thick of it.
Yeah, like the time frame that most people are going to be trick-or-treating. I don't know how that's going to work out with the podcast. We're going to do it anyway, so it might be one of those weird, just bad examples of how you can't avoid sound when sounds are just happening. So we might have a post show that just basically is like, so I thought that this match was whatever, bing bong, and like, a bunch of things like that. But we'll see. That's what's coming up over the next couple of weeks or so. And you should stay tuned for all that stuff by subscribing to the YouTube channel, ringing that bell for the notifications, following us on Facebook and Twitter at Smark Out Moment, paying attention to the website, checking all the other things that are happening up on the website, and checking the Fanboys Anonymous stuff, and hitting up the Patreon, the merch shops, everything that we've talked about here. But I have done plenty of my plugs. These guys have other things they want to plug, so I'm going to pass the baton over to Callum.
Well, if that wasn't enough stuff to get excited for the months leading ahead, we have 2001 A Wrestling Odyssey, our retro podcast where we go back to the year 2001, check out all the events and the news and stuff that was happening way back when WWE wasn't a monopoly but then became a monopoly. And we're on to the October edition, which means No Mercy 2001, so we'll be reviewing that, and we'll also be reviewing the World Wrestling All-Stars event, which took place in Australia at that point in time as well, with just a load of ex-WCW guys throwing themselves in a heavily Vince Russo influenced show. So that should be fun, as well as all the news and events that were taking place that time. So we're in the closing stretch. It's only 3 months left to go. So if you haven't checked any of the previous ones out, they're all up on the Smark Out Moment channel on YouTube, or all back on the archive with the podcasting platforms. So make sure you listen to all of those ones before you hear the next one, because we're recording that sometime this week and it'll be out. It'll be in your ears sometime next week. I was going to say, if you want to check out the power rankings as well as all the other weekly articles in SmarkOutMoment.com, then feel free to check that out. And follow me on Twitter at Wigmaster14. Now you can go, Rob.
Yes, and if you're not completely burned out by all of that wrestling that just preceded what I'm about to say, you can check out WrestleZone.com, where I do news articles throughout the week, live NXT coverage, and the WrestleZone Daily podcast, which is not only on the iTunes and Spotify feeds and stuff like that, but on Facebook as a live feed as well. And if you still need more wrestling, go to Fightful.com. Great team over there, headed by Sean Ross Sapp. I do the weekends over there. I recently did a whole week of news for Fightful, and you can check out Fightful Select on Patreon for some breaking news and exclusives. And that'll do it for me.
Alrighty, everybody, that'll do it for all of us. So thank you again for listening to this. Drop your comments below. Tell us your thoughts on this whole thing and everything else that we were talking about. And we'll see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.